cast your mind back to when you were a child. Maybe a Sunday afternoon, it's raining, it's grey, and you feel really bored. And maybe you say to your parents, I feel bored. And maybe they say back, only boring people get bored. And so, in a very well-intentioned way, they are encouraging you to do something, and that is the way to escape boredom. Now, that can often work, and it's a great thing to do. Doing something will definitely help. But as an adult, we're not always in that position. We've certainly learned to keep quiet about being bored because of how we've been encouraged by our parents to see that as a negative thing. But maybe you're in a position where you're out of work, or maybe you're in a job you really hate, or maybe you're in prison or at school, or maybe you're unwell as a patient and you're in a hospital room. There's nothing there actually to do. Obviously, you're anxious, you're waiting, there are constant beeps, all of these things that interrupt your focus, and you find it impossible to read. It would be a great opportunity, but it's just not happening. So this is the state of boredom, where you're wanting to do something, you don't know what, you're not able to concentrate, to focus. My name is Dr. Lizzie Burns. I'm actually a scientist originally, a cell biologist, but for many years now I have been working as a science-based artist, combining science and art, and I work as a creative specialist. Now, out of all the work that I do, the work that I particularly really love doing is working with patients in hospital. And obviously pre-COVID, I was working on the wards, so and encouraging patients to get creative. Now, my scientific mind has always been questioning, what is the value of that? It's clearly not a medicine. Does it matter? What value does it have? So I guess my curious mind has been asking, and I would observe maybe in a ward that lots of people are kind of drifting in and out of sleep, but maybe they've had a difficult night of sleep, not surprisingly. There's all these bleeps, they're waiting for results, and it's just this state of limbo for a lot of people. And it's not just, I work within oncology and people would describe this chemo head, and I'm sure medicines will have an effect, of course, but you see this in other areas of a hospital. I've seen this in dialysis particularly. People are waiting, and actually kind of in a way what for is just, it's very, very hard to concentrate and very understandable. And I think actually in those situations, maybe the word is boredom too, that wanting to engage but not being able to, and how to help people. I think that we can all feel empathy towards loneliness, but not towards boredom. So I'm going to be sharing with you actually what I do to help, and maybe that will inspire you. And also, yeah, I'm going to show you how I've actually started to think about boredom more. So there's an interesting story behind that. And then I'm actually going to share with you a few practical exercises too. So I hope it can inspire you. I think the great news about recognizing boredom is it will spark so many thoughts about our deep need for meaningful activity, about variety in our lives. And I think during this time of lockdown, we have all, I think, suffered from that lack of variety and interaction, and our need to be outside, and our need to do things, and the need to feel positive. So I hope overall that actually allowing yourself to have empathy towards boredom will actually be a really positive thing. It certainly has for me. So I initially encourage patients to get drawing and painting, and I have to say, if you allow yourself to do that, brilliant things will happen. But most people seem to lack that confidence, and it's a curious one with art because, quite frankly, there is no right or wrong, and I would always encourage people to just give it a go, see what happens. I think people can be much too self-critical, and so it's just allowing yourself to experiment. And I'll show you a few kind of creative activities. But it was actually, I was first of all encouraged showing things like objects as well. And this is a wonderful thing. So this is an example of something I used to bring into the hospital. Obviously, this is pre-COVID, so before the the problem of approaching people, being in a ward, obviously at the moment isn't allowed. So this is one of my kind of mystery boxes. I think surprise is a very good way of lifting people out of boredom. And I think, for example, in a children's ward, you might have a magician or someone who makes things out of balloons. There's an element of surprise, and I think that can really help. So in this case, this is my box about space. And I've got a tiny bit here of a meteorite, and I'd encourage people to look and sort of start thinking for themselves, what is it? So this is a tiny bit of a meteorite which is older than the Earth, and thinking about space will always put things in perspective, make us feel very tiny and kind of insignificant, but in a weird way that's quite freeing. So I found actually space and natural objects a beautiful way of inspiring and engaging the mind, and obviously I appear as if by magic with things that can spark the imagination. I've also got a big box here, a little bag of treasures, almost like a little museum. What have we got here? Oh, I think this is a wind-blown stone from the Gobi Desert. So looking at nature and forces will always inspire. And of course, if you're in a hospital room, you probably haven't got these options, have you? So that was something that I could offer, but maybe not so practical. I would encourage people to draw and paint. Most people, as I said, don't really have that confidence. Now, the reason I got interested in boredom was, of course, my questioning mind, but one particular person. And I want to share with you somebody who really inspired me. So he was called Leonard, and I first heard about him because I went on the ward and a nurse bounded up to me and said, Lizzie, there's a patient you must go and visit. We've got an artist on the ward. And she opened up one of the offices, and inside there were lots of colourful pictures of cars. So here's an example of some of them. I just love them. They're so colourful and fun, and of memories as well. There's quite a few ambulances here, but there are all sorts of cars. Here we go. There are hundreds and hundreds of these. So they were decorating an office. She said, you must go and visit Leonard. And so I visited Leonard, who is 68 at the time. And inside was a man busy drawing, and on his notice board were pinned out all of these pictures, which looked amazing. So I was just curious, Leonard, how come? How did you get going? And he said at first, well, he'd been in a side room, so I guess, you're not there with others, which is great for privacy, but I think maybe couldn't read. As I said, lots of people find it very hard to focus. I think the anxiety, the worry, the constant noise often as well means it's very hard to focus on a book. Patients can describe reading the page over and over again. So hadn't been able to concentrate on that. Maybe couldn't afford telly in hospitals, mostly because it's not seen as essential. Then it's effectively you have to buy that, so not everybody can afford that. So he's basically in a room, he said, for a week, and he felt so bored. And he said he then had an idea of something to do. He really liked cars and thought, actually, why don't I start drawing cars? And he hadn't drawn since he was a child, and he was 68. And so he said he asked the nurses to go and find some paper and pens, and he started drawing. And the nurses were really interested. So he said actually at first he didn't think they were that great, but actually the nurses really liked them and started kind of asking and encouraging him, and that's how he got going. And he said once he got going, he was just constantly thinking of cars to draw. He would even dream about what to draw, and and so he was there actually for many, many months doing at least 8 drawings like that a day. So I've got this massive heap of his artwork. His family very, very kindly felt that this could be useful to share, so very grateful indeed. But most of all, I think it's how it made him feel, but also how it made everybody else around feel. He would constantly have visitors. He became our celebrity and even had his first exhibition. My side question is, why isn't everybody like Leonard? Thinking of what has meaning to you. Love cars, get drawing them, makes you happy. It is as simple as that, but most people, I suppose, lack that confidence and how to get going. So I would love it if everyone was like Leonard. If only. I think it's a great thing to do. So I do really encourage drawing. If you give yourself a go, there is no right or wrong. another clue actually came to me. So that was thinking about boredom, and actually from hearing him say it was boredom, and it was so positive that it encouraged him to create so much, I was prepared to hear the boredom. And other patients had mentioned boredom, but I think it's something that we intrinsically find a bit, we don't really want to hear it. Maybe it could make us feel bored as well. We don't like the feeling, so we tend to kind of repel it, I think. So I was prepared to hear it. And actually I started reading papers. As a scientist, I'm just curious. And I read over 100 papers about boredom. Of course, it's fascinating, and I'm just so proud to be part of this society. I'm not myself doing research, but it's so important that this is recognised, not as a trivial problem, but to recognize it as a suffering, but particularly if you're in a situation where you're stuck, but also how to help people. And I think I focused on how to help people because I think that's where I can contribute the most. So other ways to help. So I'm going to show you a few practical things in a moment, but just to share with you another story from a patient. I've learned so much from others. So this is something else. So it's about 10 years old now, and I visited a patient who said, not that keen on drawing or painting. Next time, come and visit, and I'm going to teach you something, and I want you to pass it on. And transmission in a good way. And she had learnt this herself as a child, unwell in hospital, how to make origami flowers. And she again was unwell as an adult, and she would make bunches of flowers to thank healthcare workers, so to thank nurses and doctors and family and friends. She'd make big bunches of flowers like this, wrap them up in tissue paper, maybe spray them with perfume and give them to people to express thanks. And she found it would really calm the mind. It's something focused, it has a lot of meaning. All these things are very good. It's challenging. These things are very good for combating boredom, which lacks all of those elements. Also, it's incredibly accessible because it's cheap. Anyone can get hold of paper. Here I've clearly got some colourful paper, but you can still make lovely things out of white paper as well, or you can colour it yourself or find bits of magazines. You really do not need to spend any money to do origami. So I have to say, at first I found it quite hard. I like to make things up as an artist, so actually following instructions is quite hard. But out of everything that I've offered, I think it's the origami that's been the most popular. And I think because it's associated really positively from time with friends, it's actually about being back at school when you felt a bit bored in a lesson or you felt that bit trapped, and actually some fun with your friends, folding that paper aeroplane, chucking it as hard as you can, maybe making a water bomb, or the fortune tellers, those questions about love, things that were fun and full of playfulness. And I think actually you'll find this as an adult especially fun because it will bring back your playful side. It's challenging, but you'll be able to do things a lot better than when you were a child. So I think it will be a really great thing to take up. Also through YouTube, you'll find there's so many videos. So almost anything you want to make, you'll find that you can through origami. So people just showing hands folding. Very nice for focus. You can pause, you can change the speed. I've actually been recording a fold a week since the pandemic, since March 2020, and that's to support my colleagues and also patients as well. So feel free to join me on my YouTube channel, Dr. Lizzie Burns. And I've also been inventing my own ones as well, giving myself that real challenge. And yeah, origami is full of meaning. So it's the interaction, the focus, something that's absolutely accessible and cheap. You can go as simple or complex as you like. It could be, as obviously flowers have so much meaning, or it may be the particular animal, or you may just enjoy playing around with shapes and patterns. To me, I find that fascinating, amazing three-dimensional shapes, all sorts of things. So my top tips for how to combat boredom. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can get outside, that's always just great. See people, of course, but maybe we don't always have these options if you, as I said, if you're in hospital and unwell, and maybe few materials as well. So I would recommend finding a piece of paper. That really helps. So I'm going to show you what we can do. Maybe a few things from just this one piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to grab something to press on, and I'm going to direct this down. So I am going to first of all effectively take a piece of paper and just halve it. So I'm folding it in half. That's right. Good strong fold. So my sort of 3 rules for origami is my first rule is to be really precise. Start well, it continues well. Start badly, it gets worse and worse. And I think it's that attention to detail, which is focusing your mind. Again, it will combat boredom. You're being very exact, very controlled actually. And I think our stress and anxiety goes up when a situation is out of our control. And in a way, boredom is very much when things are out of our control and we don't even know what to do to help. This is very structured, and I think the structure and the order is very helpful for getting us back into a better place. So I have folded in half. My second rule for origami is to give good strong folds. It's the folds that will give it the strength. It will also work really well. And my third rule, not to forget, is meant to be fun as well. So here goes. Right, all I'm doing at the moment is just halving a piece of paper. And if you put your hand close to the edge, then you can tear it off. There we go. So 2 pieces of paper. Right, the first one, I am going to show you how to make a square first of all. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the edge and I'm lining up, and I'm doing it very carefully through the corner. Again, it's this attention to detail, and I think as well this is encouraging you to focus on the outside world rather than your own kind of ruminations and worries, which we will easily do. I mean, I find this such a powerful tool for lifting up my mood. Kind of not thinking, but I am thinking about this, so focus all on just paper and making. And as I said, it can be very structured and orderly, that you're following someone else, so it will mean you don't have to, you know, leap into the unknown. I'm going to remove that rectangle as well. So I simply turned it over. It's very spatial, and I think that's very stimulating too. Giving a good strong fold. Again, you can then put your finger close there. And I am going to show you, I think actually the first thing I'm going to do, so 3 things I do with this piece of paper. My first thing to do would be to doodle. I love doodling. Right, this is all about having no plan. Again, this is a way that we've tried to combat boredom probably when we were younger at school. You're fed up in your lesson, what can you do? Right, you really don't need to have any plan at all with doodling, and I think that's about allowing yourself to be creative. It's surprising how much you can do with a piece of paper. So I've encouraged patients to doodle, and it's great to see actually similarities in what people do. Sometimes like this it's sort of a bit abstract, and sometimes it could be of something, or maybe it's of words. But really not having a plan, I think, is a really good way of being very playful. And I find that they vary with time, and I try out all sorts of things, but I'm really not thinking too much about it. Yeah, maybe you can keep a sort of doodle diary. This could be something you could fold up as origami as well. Second thing I do with paper is I do love writing poems. Now, I know we all think of poems in quite a negative way. I certainly had done. But honestly, there's no right or wrong. So just see what happens. You can write down anything of how you feel. It could just be for yourself. It could be for others. You don't have to rhyme with poems. But sometimes, you know what, it can be quite fun to rhyme as well. So it's, again, actually using constraint in a playful way. So you might find little words rhyming. So I have been writing so many poems in this time as well. So that's something else you might consider. Just doing it for yourself. Write down anything you want. It will free you as well. So it's a very good thing to do. Right, my third thing to do is let's do some folding. And hopefully this will give you a little taste of origami. So my other half piece of paper, again, I'm going to make a square. So, and I often think actually this flat piece of paper is a bit like boredom. You're feeling a bit flat, you don't quite know what to do. But with origami, I will show you a way out of it, and it will take you through all sorts of journeys, twists and turns, and you'll see what emerges at the end of it. So I'm going to keep this a surprise. As I said, I think surprise is an important element to get yourself out of that little pit of feeling rubbish. So hopefully you have got a square with a diagonal line. Our next step is we're going to do the other diagonal, but just a pinch in the middle. So taking this and folding it over. I've also been learning how to film into a camera and talk to myself, which is what I'm doing here. All the amazing things your brain can do. Giving yourself challenge and projects. Obviously I'm in a a fortunate position I can do all these things, but the more we can encourage each other, the better. So I've done that diagonal line and I did that pinch in the middle. Now our next step is to take the top and bring it to the middle, like so. And yeah, this is all about challenge, focus, attention to detail, creating beauty. It's also science, it's engineering. With time I've experimented and found loads of amazing things too. I'm going to take this bottom corner and bring it up to the top, and as I said, scrap paper, anything. This is very, very affordable, and yeah, hopefully comes with some nice memories. And also you can make gifts for others, which is always a great. If you can make a little piece of origami and give it to someone, they will be so chuffed. It's shown that you've thought of them. Always full of meaning. Right, so it's looking like this. Our next step is to take this bottom edge and bring it up to the vertical line. There we go. You might start to guess what this is. This has been my favourite fold over lockdown. You'll see why in a moment. And this, again, this bottom line, bring it up to this vertical line. And you will be guessing why, because it shows that you care. And that actually does matter, doesn't it? That connection between people. Now this is a traditional heart, it looks a bit pixelated, so let's just soften it as well. So this top point I'm going to fold back. There we go, the top point again folding back, and the side also folding back. And you can probably see where I am. I surround myself with colour and things. I just need that interest. Yeah. So I clearly need a lot of mental stimulation, I think, as we all do, really. So I hope maybe you've managed to make your own heart. Maybe you could make a display, maybe you could decorate it, you could write it, maybe you could give your heart to somebody else. Ways we can combat boredom. I hope you found this interesting and thought-provoking, and yeah, try and hopefully encourage you to have a little bit more empathy towards thinking of a person in that difficult situation where they do lack the opportunities, but also finding it hard to focus. Or maybe if you do have friends or family in hospital, maybe you could pass on something like a colouring book or some paper and encourage them to join with origami films online. Just show you care will make a difference as well. Thank you very much. Bye bye.